Hello and welcome to the first episode of 2021 of the Try Talking Sport podcast, hosted by me, Joanne Murphy. Whether you are an athlete, adventurer, endurance enthusiast, or simply have an interest in sport, you've come to the right place for inspiration, encouragement, motivation, and of course, just a little bit of entertainment. Happy New Year! It feels a bit strange saying that now, considering all that is going on outside the front door, but nonetheless, it is a new year and I'd like to wish you the very best of health and success for the year ahead. It's going to be another roller coaster of a year. There will be plenty of ups and downs, hopefully more wins than losses. And in the face of what's happening locally and globally, I hope you are staying safe and taking some time for yourself to embrace some form of movement or exercise, whatever that may be for you. If you need some support, motivation and help with getting your exercise done, or indeed getting some motivation to get outside the front door, we have a super Facebook group recently renamed Try Talking Sport Lockdown Lifestyle Challenge, and within that group there's a whole mix of abilities and interests across swim, bike and run. It's a very safe and positive environment filled with encouragement and motivation. So if you have lost a little bit of your sparkle or your motivation magic, or just need a pick-me-up, feel free to join us in the group. You can pop me an email if you can't find it on Facebook. Thankfully, we have had a very positive start to the year with the announcement that our Monday night Zwift spins, which had been running as a meetup since September, were to become part of the official Zwift Global Calendar. Yippee! The spin is now being coordinated in partnership with Team Ireland Cycling and the Park Tri community. And huge thanks to Richie Sheeran and Oliver Harkin, who are spearheading our spin every week. It's fantastic. We started back last week and with a great crew of 150 riders. And this week we had over 200 people enjoying a social spin on the virtual tarmac for 60 minutes. The session is open to all and a great way to start the week. You can sign up each week on the companion app, look for the 7:30pm Team Ireland Try Talking Sport Park Tri Spin, or keep an eye on our social media for the joining link. Now, you may have also seen on social that we set up a fun macaroon protein square cook-off challenge. Jeepers, that was a mouthful. With ultra-endurance cyclist Joe Barr and performance nutritionist Gillian Mooney. We've had loads of requests for the recipes and we've had loads of people making the macaroons, and I can confirm they are very, very tasty. If you'd like a copy of the recipe, please pop an email to trytalkingsport@gmail.com. Now, if you didn't get a chance to listen to the most recent episode of the show with Jerry Duffy, be sure to check it out. It's filled with insight and information to help you beat off those January lockdown or COVID blues. For this episode, I was delighted to chat with South African-based British professional triathlete Emma Pallant, whom I have had the pleasure of meeting on numerous occasions as she stormed to victory at multiple Ironman 70.3 races in recent years. Emma Pallant is a name synonymous with success in sport, firstly as a runner and more recently in endurance sport and triathlon. Identified at a young age as a talented athlete, she embarked on a sporting journey as a runner and earned a string of successes and wins to her name at a local, national and international level. She narrowly missed qualification for the Beijing Olympics in 2008, then injury saw her miss London 2012. Despite the disappointment that ensued, it didn't deter her from following her passion for sport. In fact, it made her hungry for more and created an opportunity for Emma to explore and excel in multi-sport racing, resulting in a career of sporting excellence across swim, bike and run. Having taken up triathlon in 2012, she spent some time on the ITU circuit before making a move to longer distance racing. She has worked hard to get where she is today, but she has made the sport her own, embracing and adapting quickly to the triathlon lifestyle. And although running is still her favourite discipline, when added to her swim and bike, she is a force to be reckoned with. Some of her most notable achievements include being a double world champion in duathlon. She also has a world aquathon title and she finished second in the Ironman 70.3 World Championships in 2017, which saw her make her mark the distance whilst the world was watching. Since then, she has podiumed in countless races across the world, in both 70.3 and full distance triathlon, including a third place spot at Ironman Austria in 2018, which she stamped her ticket to race at Kona. In 2019, she had a podium-packed season, and in early 2020, she finished Ironman 70.3 South Africa in second place. Last year was not the season she was expecting, but making the most of her opportunities, she packed a punch at all her racing efforts in the virtual world and in real life. A stellar athlete who has the world at her feet, she remains grounded, focused, passionate and committed to her sport. I expect we will see a lot more from Emma Pallant for many years to come. Enjoy the show. Emma, thank you so much for joining me on our first podcast of 2021. Woohoo!
Woohoo! Thank you so much for having me.
No problem. So, Emma, we know you're in South Africa, but where in South Africa are you and how are things over there at the moment?
So we've done a little mini trip over Christmas of a little tour of South Africa, and we are back home in Johannesburg. So it's definitely been a little bit of a roller coaster over Christmas and New Year, but it's good to be home.
And of course, we did see just before Christmas you were meant to get married, but those plans got scuppered because of COVID. So one of the questions I'm going to have to ask you is, has the date been reset for 2021 and what are the wedding plans?
Yes, so we sent something out to people to say that the wedding was cancelled, and then we thought actually that's probably not the best way. We probably should explain ourselves. It's been postponed, so we had everything planned. We got engaged last year in March, and we were like positive thinking, things are going to be fine by December. Let's just throw everything into it and hope for the best. So we really delayed postponing it. So had the big wedding planned, but it's obviously not to be. So we're still going to get married actually next Friday. Just a super small ceremony, the same place that we were going to get married. But just with a couple of friends and then do a Zoom online to everyone else that it was meant to be coming. I think the hardest thing was I was so looking forward to, it's been over a year now since I've seen my family, and it was the big kind of, if everyone can travel and get over. And they were the same. Everyone booked their flights. All my friends had booked their flights and things. It was just going to be a big party. But I think it's going to be a special day. It's just going to be very different. And hopefully everyone will be able to come and celebrate with us next December. Take the trip over.
And what are the restrictions like in South Africa at the moment? Because here in Ireland, and I know in the UK, the restrictions are gone quite strict now. So we've gone back to pretty much where we were in March of 2020 into a level 5, almost a level 5 plus restriction here in Ireland. So, there's no going to the shops unless it's the essential journey. They're asking people to stay at home. The schools are closed, businesses are shut. And really, we're only allowed to go out and about for up to 5k for exercise. Is that the same in South Africa? Has it been as strict as that, or what's the situation over there at the moment?
Yeah, so the initial lockdown that we had back in April was super strict. So we couldn't even go out to exercise. It was literally stay in your house. And so we're not back at that level yet. But cases had increased. So they're back to no alcohol, and I think only groups of up to 50 people. But they really are kind of saying no gathering. So don't meet with people. And even cycling, you can only have up to 4 people, keep a distance, and ideally in the same household. So it's kind of they're shutting beaches and parks and things, and just trying to stop people gathering. Not the massive lockdown that we did, so we can still go outside for now. So we're counting ourselves lucky.
Well, you're lucky you're not getting married in Ireland, because there's only 6 people allowed at a wedding in Ireland at the moment under the current restrictions, which is quite small.
Oh, yeah, that sounds like what our wedding is going to be. I think we were allowed 10 people, including ourselves. So we have 8 guests coming. So a little bit of tough decisions going down.
I'm sure you'll have an absolutely fantastic day regardless. And although I'd love to spend all day talking about the wedding planning, we are going to talk about your success in sport. You're still quite young, but you've had a stellar career to date. A runner, a world champion in duathlon and aquathon, super successful professional triathlete. So will you bring us right back, Emma, to when you were a youngster, how you got involved in sport, and were you always sporty?
Yeah, so I think from a young age, my mum describes me as always being hyperactive, and she kind of felt that sports would suit me quite well. So, but then every sport she took me to test out, I seemed to love. So I ended up joining so many clubs, and she became more like a taxi driver. But I just loved sport. I was super competitive from a young age. Like even on holidays, I would bully my brother into spending hours and hours on the tennis court. And I think it was just one of those things that I just love to be active, and I love to push my body and had fun outside. So it was probably, I think I was probably about 14 or maybe even a little bit younger, when it was actually my run coach that said, if you're really competitive and you seriously want to be good at one sport, then you have to make a decision. You can't do everything. which, yeah, where I am and what I'm doing now is a bit ironic, but I chose 3.
You were on track for the Beijing Olympics, but injury got in the way. I mean, you were a serious runner, a very successful young runner.
Yeah. And running was the one I loved. I think like team sports were great and I found them fun, but I just felt so free and so just like I could push my body more than anything else when I was out running. So, yeah, I was seriously committed to it. Again, I didn't see it as ever being committed or like it's just something that I love to do. Like I wanted to go out and run every day and that became my social life. And we had such a good group of kind of young athletes that were all growing up together and just going to the races. And yeah, I probably overdid it a little bit. I was I think I was 18 when I had my knee surgery. That was a bit of a wake-up call of you can't just go hard all the time and you'll be all right.
In the time from when you were running back 2008, how did you make the switch then into aquathon, duathlon, and then eventually into triathlon?
So I was mentored by Kelly Holmes. So she had like a mentoring scheme that took us to races, and she was very involved in my running career. And she had a charity that was at London Triathlon. When I kind of dropped out of a race and I was like, I can't run anymore. I'm getting so frustrated with this. She was like, okay, you need a goal for your cross training. What can we have at the end of it that you can enter? And she was like, I've got a charity spot at this triathlon. Why don't you swim and bike hard? And then we know you can run in a couple of months. Just give the running a rest and then just run at the end of the triathlon. So yeah, I swam hard, I biked hard, and after a week of training, I thought, actually, I have no idea what I am doing. And I should probably get a coach or some kind of guidance. So I wrote to Michelle Dillon, and she was like, okay, I'll take you on. And then it kind of began quite seriously. So I got moved up into the elite wave. It was definitely an experience, my first triathlon.
So how did you end up getting moved from the regular age group wave into the elite wave? Did they spot your talent, or did they know of your talent?
The performance director at British Triathlon was the performance director at UK Athletics before. So like second in command. So yeah, I knew her quite well, and I'd been at a lot of running races with her. And yeah, she asked me if if I wanted to be bumped up.
So did you race Daniela Ryf that year?
Yes, that's the year, yeah.
And you finished 6th behind Daniela in the elite wave on the day?
Yeah, I think it was 6th, yeah.
That's pretty incredible to think that you obviously have some great running form despite your injury, but then to be able to put it all together and to execute a 6th place performance in the elite wave on the day must have been phenomenal.
Yeah, I think looking back at how I stood on that line, and I think right now, knowing how unprepared I was, I would have been terrified. Like I hadn't swum open water, and I felt like I was fighting for my life in there, which I'm sure many people can agree with. But it was a crazy experience.
So was it love at first sight with triathlon then, like many of us who do our first race, the buzz after crossing the finish line, it's like, oh yeah, that's it, I'm hooked now?
Yeah, I kind of felt it was like a road running race, but times 10. I kind of felt like I love being able to race, like everyone is together and everyone is in the same race. And it was such a massive event. And I kind of like, that's what I used to love about road races, that you turn up and everyone was on the same start line and it was a big event and it felt like a big party. And I couldn't believe that this was what all triathlons were like, that everyone raced together. And I definitely got the bug.
Where did you go after that?
Yeah, so that kind of got me thinking that this is what because I'd really enjoyed the training as well. The lead into it, I hadn't had many weeks training, but I enjoyed that you were literally, working hard. Like the hours in the day were so different to being a professional runner. You kind of, there was a lot more training. And it was more of a lifestyle type thing. I was actually working as a physio to begin with. And so whilst I was running, and I kind of decided that if I wanted to do triathlon properly and commit to the hours of training, then, I'd have to throw it all in. I'd had a really good running sponsor. So I made some savings and I kind of worked out I could support myself for the first 6 months. So, that was the idea. I just threw all in for 6 months to see where I could get to.
Tell us a little bit about some of those results that you got, Emma. You are a multiple world champion in aquathon and duathlon. So how did you go from that first triathlon to become a world champion?
Yeah, so a lot of years. a lot of training, and it was the duathlon that really helped me, because it was that bit of my swim. I started off in the shorter course, so my swim, I'd often get out of the swim and only see my bike there. So yeah, that was tough racing to begin with, and it was kind of the duathlon that gave me that. It kept me in there. It was prize money, because it kind of helped fund me to my triathlon races, where I still knew I had to up my swim to get the results. Duathlon, I thought it came quite naturally, and I absolutely love duathlon. I still want to go back to World Duathlon, fingers crossed, this year. In those years, it was also moving from short course to long course that helped. Again, with that swim just not being as strong, I kind of could depend on my bike a little bit more.
How did you cope with the swim side of things in terms of stepping up with your ability as a swimmer to match your performance on the bike and as a runner?
It's really hard to think about it, but one of the annoying things for me as well, I could feel great in a duathlon, so I could feel great on the bike, on the run, and then you put a swim in front, and I'd come out of the water so tired, I didn't feel like my bike or run was where it should be either, and it was kind of putting that into the mind frame of, okay, it is down to the swim, like don't panic, don't keep on trying to ramp up the run and bike, because that also was having a negative impact on my swim, and I actually went away for, I think it was 6 weeks in the end, to Perth, to a training camp with Swim Smooth. So I joined his squad and took things back to basics, and literally we were swimming with the squad like twice a day. So there wasn't a massive amount of room for over biking or over running. It was frustrating. I hate to slow down, and the swim is so much about technique and flowing and relaxing, and I think it was good for me just as a life lesson as well. And it was actually, I'd say the biggest turning point for me was actually when I broke my clavicle and then ended up in the gym, and that land training and doing all those, I was so obsessed with the videos online, like watching people's technique, and I just watched so much stuff whilst I couldn't get in the pool. I think that actually really helped.
And are the pools open in South Africa at the moment?
Yes, so the swimming pools on their own aren't, but if they're in a gym, they've closed all the dams and the beaches and everything, but if your pool is in a gym, then the gyms are still open. So yeah, I can still swim.
Yeah, you didn't set up a paddling pool in the back garden, no?
If I could have done, I would have done, but no, just swim bands all day long.
When did you decide then to step up to the longer distance stuff?
When I found out that I think it was my second year of short course, and I'd got a top 10 at a WTS, but I still wasn't on funding. And it was that decision of, okay, I either have to go back to work to support myself to go to these races, or I give the long course a shot and just believe that I can get the results. Kind of doing the aquathlon and duathlon alongside that. And to be honest, the training didn't massively change. It was more the equipment. So learning to get on a TT bike, learning to ride aero, and that was a big learning curve.
What about the difference from moving from the draft racing across to the non-draft legal racing of the longer distance stuff?
I much preferred the idea of time trialing, because it was that much more, it didn't matter, like you didn't have to study like to work out the dynamics of the race beforehand, because everyone was going to be working as hard as each other. The time trialing really appealed to me, but just the aerodynamics were quite a bit to get my head around.
Your first Ironman 70.3 or your middle distance race then was in Brazil. Was that the race in Brazil where you were winning, and then what happened?
That was the one. So obviously the other factor and side of things on the long course is it being a 4-hour race. You kind of have to have good nutrition. So I didn't really overly think it. I thought Brazil's a great place. I'm going to have so much fun there. Get a good tan. Also got super dehydrated. I didn't really eat or drink on the bike at all. I was just in that zone, just in that, just pushing and just feeling like the race was all going to plan, and I couldn't believe it. My first one, kind of leading a race with the lead bicycle, and then it just hit me like I felt really bad. And then I think I had about a K to go, and I felt really, really bad. And I thought I'd just stop at this water station, and then just remember kind of waking up, looking up at everyone, and not knowing where I was. Thankfully, they didn't, the medical didn't do anything to me on course. So they said as long as I stayed on there, came around and got myself going again, I walked in, and I think I came sixth again, I think.
But despite that actually happening to you, it must have given you an awful lot of self-confidence. Step up in your very first middle distance race and be so close to winning, like to be leading the race. And it must have given you a huge amount of self-confidence for the next time you went to go racing the distance.
Yeah. And I love how you think. That was the exact train of thought. So you straight away think, okay, the next one, that must have helped you for the next one. Whereas my mum, who tried to be tracking from home, her first thought when she phoned me was, okay, you're never going to do that again, are you? So you hate that sport. We're not going to do long anymore. But yeah, no, I thought the same as you. I was like, this is brilliant. I love this race. There's a chance for me here. So yeah, I was super happy with it.
You've had a really good career in the 70.3 and even at long distance racing, but I was looking at your race results there before we started chatting, and it's a lot of 70.3. Is that where your strength is now? Do you think, is that where you're going to focus for the future, the 70.3 distance racing, or will you look to go long and try to go back to Hawaii again?
Yeah, definitely. I think so the long stuff, I felt like it really impacted 2 years of my 70.3s, and I feel like I've got more to do with in 70.3, and at the moment I'm definitely just want to focus on that. I want to see where I can go, where I can take it, and yeah, for sure that's the priority, and I've decided definitely not to race long for the next couple of years to see where I can go with it.
Because you had an exceptional race. Was it in Nice where you came second against Daniela in the 70.3 World Championships?
In Chattanooga.
Oh, Chattanooga, sorry, yeah. And you have qualified for Worlds in 70.3 for this year, which should have been last year, really.
Yeah, so this year, which is now St. George, I think. I keep saying New Zealand.
I know, we all get confused. But it must have, again, I come back to that confidence piece, Emma, because to line up in Chattanooga, I mean, you were relatively new to the 70.3 distance racing at that time to go up against the best in the world at that level. But to come second to Daniela, who I'm sure had a massive target on her back for that race, it must, again, have been fantastic for you. I know it would have been nice to have won, but also to finish just behind her.
Yeah, definitely. And I'd kind of, so the 2 years previous to that, I'd won the World Duathlon, then I'd gone to the World Duathlon 2 weeks before, because it was in Canada, and the World 70.3 was in Chattanooga, so we worked out we could do both. And yeah, I'd gone to the World Duathlon and I'd got a bit excited, maybe overtrained a little bit, and I was tired there, and I just had a bad race. I was I came third, and I was not happy with my race, and I kind of then took that gap in between the World Duathlon and the World 70.3 to just relax, trust in what I'd done, freshen up, and I just had that fire in my belly, when you just race, and it was my first World 70.3 champs, but I was excited. I just felt ready. Yeah, I stood on that start line, and I just enjoyed it. The whole race I really enjoyed.
You talk about disappointment, Emma, but you've had a fair share of it over the course of your career, as well as the highs. There have been some lows with the knee injury and missing out on certain races as well that maybe you look back on, would love to have been part of. Now, I know you've gone on another fantastic journey in sport, but how do you deal with disappointment? Going into a race, potentially a favourite in a race, maybe not winning it, or having a nutritional problem, or having a cramp or a pain, or whatever reason that you don't do as well as you've set yourself out to do. How do you come back from that disappointment of a bad race day, or what you would perceive to be a poor performance day?
Yeah, I think I just always try and look for the purpose of that training block. And I think there's never the end result is always great. But in the journey that you did to work to that end result, I think that's the magic. I think that's what changes you as a person, physically, mentally, whatever it is. You gain so much in that period. And then it's kind of whatever happens after, if you get the result or if you don't, you can't erase all that hard work that you did. And I think I always try and look back, for example, when I was training for Beijing and really looking to those Olympics, and I didn't make the team, but my best friend did. And I trained with her on all that lead up, all that. For one of us to get there, it was still our work, and those precious kind of moments that we had, those, I don't know, training sessions where you go to that deep, dark place and you just, no one can take that away from you. And I think, okay, so the world didn't see the performance that you wanted to execute, but everything that you did to get to there, it doesn't go anywhere. And I think just having that inner thing of, you're still that stronger athlete. You can go back, there's 10, 11, 12, however many more races you want. You're still there. And you're always going to get another opportunity if that's what you want.
Looking back now, do you think if you had gone to the Olympics, would your world be completely different? Or do you think would you be on the path that you're on now?
Yeah, I think it would be different, because I don't think I'd be the same person or look at the world the same way as what I learned from that period of being on crutches, not being able to run, and really just having to take that step back. I think I just learned so much about balance and about life, and I think I'm not sure who I would be.
It's funny, they say everything happens for a reason, and I'm sure at the time it didn't feel like it was a good reason that it was happening to you, but look at the career you have created for yourself now, a world-class champion athlete. It's fantastic, and no doubt end up continuing to podium and to win races around the world. In terms of transitioning across from a single sport to that multi-sport, and, obviously we would see a lot of runners or swimmers or cyclists looking to take the plunge into triathlon, move across from that one individual sport. What was the hardest part of that transition for you, moving across from a runner into a triathlete?
I think the hardest part for me was getting my head around you couldn't swim with the swim squad and bike with the cycling group and stick to your run program. Like, I loved my run program, I loved my run routine, and for someone to say less is actually more, because you've got 3 sports, it's not 3 times the amount. You can't literally do that, otherwise you just get slower. And it was having that balance of, okay, juggling your weakness, improving your weakness, but not losing the weapon of your strength. And that has been, an ongoing challenge. And also, of course, the nutrition and the swim, because with it being such a longer event than, 4 minutes on a track running, you don't have to think about anything. Whereas, with a 4-hour race, it's a bit different.
Or an 8-hour Ironman, it's very different.
Even more different.
I want to talk to you a little bit about the injury and protecting your body now from injury to make sure that you don't have issues going forward. And one of the big things I hate, and I'm self-confessed, I hate it. I hate doing strength and conditioning. I don't like yoga and Pilates. Put me on a bike and I'm happy, or throw me in the sea, even a little bit of running. But how much focus do you now put on the strength and conditioning side of your training and the recovery side of your training?
As I was a runner, I kind of just lived life to, I didn't think about those external things of like, recovery to me was, okay, you're just not running. Whereas not actively, okay, what am I eating? And sleeping. I used to be a terrible, terrible sleeper. Triathlon's really taught me, if you're a bit slack in one area, like it bites you in the bum. So I've kind of just really on the recovery side of things, that's definitely improved a lot through sleep. That was kind of the lesson that taught me the most. I think that I've seen the biggest change. And then on the S&C side of things, I do it religiously. My minimal is twice a week, and just making it functional. So not just going into the gym and pushing heavy weights for the sake of it, but I think I'm better at doing it when I know why I'm doing it, when I know, okay, this leads into this part of the bike or this part of the run, and just making that brain connection with it, and then putting that into when I'm running on the treadmill, okay, I'm thinking about that exercise I did, and I'm actually thinking about turning that muscle on, and I'm thinking, and when you feel good from one exercise, then you're like, okay, like I want to feel better, and it's just that positive cycle of reinforcement of, it's working. So definitely much better at it than I was.
And do you think the fact that you're a physiotherapist as well behind it all, that you're more in tune with your body and where those niggles are coming from, as opposed to somebody like me that might just try and do some exercises to work through a niggle or some stretches? Do you think that has benefited you, having that kind of insider knowledge on your body?
Yeah, I think it used to work against me, because I always thought I was superhuman. So I could tell people, okay, don't do this because this is going to have blah, blah. Whereas it came to me, I'd always say, okay, the best case scenario. So if I had a niggle in my foot, I'd be like, it's just a twinge of a dead foot because you were sitting on it. You've just blocked a nerve for a couple of minutes. Like, go run and that will make it feel better. Whereas now I think it does work in my favor, because when I'm thinking about the exercises and the things that I'm doing, it makes sense for all the body parts and the things that we were taught. actually putting them into my own practice now, it makes a lot more sense.
How are you getting your training done at the moment? Mix of indoors, outdoors. What sort of training are you doing now, and how are you maximising your time?
Yeah, so we've just come back from the coast, so being by the sea at Durban to Johannesburg. So obviously we've just moved back up to altitude. So just going to do a little base block, just low heart rate to begin with, get everything moving, get everything back started again. And yeah, hoping for maybe a Zwift series in February. Just any racing, we'll take what we can get. But yeah, I definitely don't see that we'll be racing till April. So I'm going to do that cycle of 3 weeks hard, 1 week easy. And yeah, just build up the strength in my body. And I love training. So it's more a case of, just making sure we don't overdo it, don't get too excited. And yeah, just be ready for whatever comes first.
So explain to the listeners what you mean by being at altitude. How does that affect your breathing or your performance?
Yeah, so I think here we're almost 2,000 in height. So that's probably similar to Boulder. So altitude training, the benefit is, the higher up you go, the less oxygen there is. So it makes you produce more red blood cells. So if you go straight up high and you try and train hard and get that intensity in, then you can obviously fatigue yourself a lot more, do a lot more damage. A lot of people find it hard to sleep at altitude. So yeah, it's a progressive, you'll see your heart rate's higher. So it's kind of trying to go off heart rate and oxygen saturation levels to begin with, and then just monitor that progression up to, doing longer, kind of low intensity reps to begin with.
So does that mean when you go back down to sea level that technically you should be stronger because you've worked with less oxygen?
Yeah. So you should be able to, produce more energy for less. So you've got more of your red blood cells. So yeah, take more of that oxygen in. I
want to come back to something you mentioned earlier about sleeping. So how you're now sleeping better than you were. So what did you do to affect that change with the sleeping? Was it a change in habits? And was it going to bed earlier, not looking at your phone? What was it? Because a lot of people now, especially during COVID, they're very anxious and they're finding it hard to sleep. So, we're all on our phones scrolling. We're not reading a book. We don't have good sleep hygiene. But was there anything in particular you did to support your sleep?
Yeah, so pretty much everything that you can do wrong, I was doing wrong. So it was a whole change of habit. So first of all, we blacked out my room. So made it tidy, blacked it out. So yeah, then it was dark when I was
love
sleeping.
The way you said you made it tidy. Had you a messy bedroom?
Yes, I'm the messiest person ever. So yeah, that was a big challenge. And as a runner, I was so into sugary things. So I'd be high energy, and we train late. So I trained with the squad at 6:30. I wouldn't get home till 9:10. And then I wouldn't want a big meal or anything. I'd just, have some sweets, like chill out with a fizzy drink or whatever. And then be trying to go to sleep, which is crazy. And also hot drinks. I love a good cup of tea or something before, and then that was getting me up to go to the loo. Just being hyped up before. So I was not a morning trainer. I was an evening trainer because a lot of the track races were in the evening. So yeah, it was kind of getting that pattern of after training, I wouldn't stand and talk to everyone for hours and then get home late. It was more, okay, I'm going to go chill, have something like protein so that I'm not getting up in the middle of the night hungry. Also with the phones, I really, everyone says it, but it is such a massive difference. If you're not kind of looking at your phone, if you try and switch your brain off and almost go into a relaxing, watching something relaxing, like, just putting some kind of mindless TV on and you soon fall asleep.
Over here we'll all have the fires on. We won't have the sun beaming through the window in the middle of winter. I want to ask you a little bit about your season for 2020. I know there wasn't many races, but you did do Ironman 70.3 South Africa, you did do the Super League Triathlon, you were in Daytona, you were Zwifting. So for a year where there was a lot of races cancelled, you put in some stellar performances.
Yeah, we were just, again, in that cycle of we agreed to be ready for whatever, and we said we would do whatever, to the point of Jared got me a mountain bike, and I hate going off road. And he was like, "You're doing this. You're going to improve your handling." And then he said, "You're going to do the first race that comes along." And I was like, "Yeah, agreed, totally." And I was expecting a road bike race or something. This gravel race comes along, and I was like, "Oh no!" And I'd made a promise, so yeah, I went off road. I totally stacked it, but yeah, we literally just took whatever we could, and we had fun doing it. Definitely, yeah, grew as an athlete.
That's what I was going to ask you. You know, as a professional athlete, you must be under pressure at times to win a race. Obviously, it's your salary, and your career is, winning races and performing well at races. But how much of it is fun, and how much of it is work? You know, is there a fun element to the side of pro racing that we don't see?
Yeah, definitely. I think it is hard work, and I always say when people are on training camps and in the 4th or the 5th day of it, and I'm like, yeah, this is real. This is like what you're going through each day. And yeah, sometimes you don't want to go out for a run when you've done a hard bike and swim in the morning and it's 5 o'clock and yeah, everything aches. But yeah, I love it. I am so lucky and what we do, and I do it because I love it, and I really do each day. Yeah, know how lucky I am to do it as a job. It's not always glamorous, and there are times where you have to do things that you maybe don't want to do, but that's life. And I think we are, so lucky to be able to do what we do. If
you look back to 2020, what was the highlight of the year for you?
It's I either have to say getting engaged or getting a puppy. Because,
not sport related at all.
No. My 2 boys, but sport related, I would say Daytona, just because it was the big thing of we didn't train for it, we didn't think we'd get there, and yeah, last minute we managed to get across, so totally unexpected. That and the Zwift races, I had good fun in the Zwift races. You
were putting out some serious power in the race with I think it was at Lucy at one stage. You had phenomenal watts. I mean, it was absolutely like nuts the amount of power that you guys were pushing through the pedals in the Zwift race.
And it was crazy because we changed our whole training. So I said going into lockdown, I couldn't sprint. And literally me and Jared would spend evenings in the garage and he was showing me how to not get dead spots in your pedal stroke and extending at the bottom and pushing through and getting up. And yeah, it was so much fun when you do it. And I'm like, this hurts.
It certainly does. In terms of Daytona, were you happy with your performance?
No. And
I know you got a penalty as well. I never found out why you got the penalty. Did you find out why you got a penalty?
No, so it's still, they've actually taken it now into an investigation to the board. So PTO are doing it on my behalf, which is, again, I'm really thankful for having that board there. And hopefully we find out. But I just, without the penalty, I think I just made some real mistakes that I look back and I'm like, what was I doing? I think as well, I didn't put the specific work in that if we'd known we were racing, just being more aero and being able to spend that time in the bars because the bike was brutal. I shouldn't have moved from that position. But hey, I was so happy to be there and it was a great race.
And just for our listeners who mightn't be aware of what Challenge Daytona was this year, talk me through the distances and the setup of the event very briefly.
So I think it was a tiny bit longer swim. So it's like 2K swim and then a little bit of a shorter bike and run. So I think 80K bike and 18K run. But it was all on the Daytona race course. So the water was 2 laps in the lake they have there. And then it was 20 laps around the race course. And then 18K. So super fast, super flat, and it was a good turnout. Like for everyone travelled that could, and it was an awesome race.
It was great to watch, and it was great to see so many of the big names, yourself included, on the start line, but also to see some of the other athletes coming through as well. And some of the British athletes did very, very well that were coming through. It was really exciting to watch, and it looked, really good. Like we were watching it here, obviously, glued to it and enjoying the coverage. Looking to 2021, and aside from your wedding next Friday, which will be 2 days from now when the show goes live, what are the plans for 2021 when you can get back racing?
The big goal, the A race, if I can get into the Collins Cup, that would be amazing, and doing Samarin as a big race in May. But the goal will be to travel back to Europe if the races are on. So in April, do a good European block of races there, and then go to America and get ready for Boulder and do some of the American races there. Fingers crossed, if the World Duathlon also works into there, that would be amazing. And again, just racing. I like to race quite often, so just getting out on the scene again.
You won Dublin 70.3 and you won Staffordshire 70.3. So are you tempted to come back to Staffordshire, and will you come to Cork in August? Would they potentially be on the cards for you, or will they clash with your plans for the States?
Yeah, so definitely Staffordshire. I would love to be there. I hope to still be in Europe by then. And yeah, I just want to spend time with my family, and for them to all be able to come to a race would be, that would be so good. So fingers crossed.
Is it hard being so far away from them now, Emma? I know you've lived in South Africa for a while, and you know, life on the road as a professional athlete is very different to what some of us would experience as a 9-to-5 Monday to Friday office job. But especially during COVID, and considering, you know, the influence that your mum had and the support that she had throughout your younger years as an athlete in terms of supporting your sport, is it hard to be so far away from home now?
Yeah, definitely. And I think it never felt far away, because I always thought I can just, anytime I can pop on that plane and whereas especially times at Christmas, and I've got a 4-year-old nephew, and always talking to him through Skype, which isn't quite the same as being able to tip him upside down and run around in the garden with him. But and my mum, similarly, she would always pop across to whatever race she could when I was in Europe. So hopefully things get back to normal soon.
Before we go to some of our audience questions, and we actually have quite a lot of them, so I'm conscious that we've been chatting for a while already and that we have some more questions. But as a female athlete and as a role model for other athletes coming through, not giving up sport in teenage years and coming through the whole way, what sort of advice would you give to mums and dads now about their daughters who are involved in sport, and whether that's running, swimming, cycling, gymnastics, whatever it is, you know, to keep them in the sport? What would you suggest that parents do to support their daughters in sport as they get older?
I think just making sure that they're having fun and that they can talk to anyone, because I think especially girls in sport, they're either very competitive and very driven, and it can be a bit of a thing that they get worried about, or they get like it's a bit of a stress. And I think keeping that enjoyment factor in, so making sure that whatever they do, that they're enjoying it, that they're loving going to it, that they have their friends there, and just supporting them at their own pace. Like my mum never ever pushed me. She was the opposite. She was trying to hold me back and being like, there are other things you could do as well, you know, and keep me balanced. And just always just supporting what they want to do if it makes them happy, and just let them do it at their own pace. That would definitely be my advice.
You mentioned your mum quite a bit. How important was her support as a kid growing up for sport? Do you think you'd be where you are today without her support?
Yeah, definitely not. Without a doubt, she kind of she raised us to do what we love. And even when we were younger, my brother was obsessed with ballet and I was obsessed with football, and everyone was looking at us like, shouldn't you swap them around? And she was like, happy. I'm happy. And he's a professional ballet dancer now, and we're just, I don't know, it's just all the time that she gave up is massive. It kind of made us be able to do what we love. So
do you think your ability in sport and your brother's ability in dance was in your genes?
Well, my dad definitely can't dance, and so I'm sure, my granddad was a very good runner. So I'll take it from him, I think.
The one other thing I want to ask you before we go to the audience questions is, if you could give your younger self some advice about life and sport, what would it be?
I think I tell myself to listen more to my body, that not to always be so mind driven and be so direct on things, to actually listen and know when to back off, know when to take an easy day and know when to go hard, kind of just have more of a range and be a bit smarter with listening.
I think we could all do with listening to our bodies a bit more, although when it tells us to sit on the couch for the 4th day in a row, we might need to stop listening to it. So just moving over to some of our audience questions. So obviously we knew we were going to interview you today, and we asked across social media for some questions. So Deirdre Kelly, who's a big fan of the show, had loads of questions, but we've actually asked some of them already. 2 of them though are: number 1, what's your most favourite race? And 2, where do you want to live long term?
I think Barcelona would have to be my most favourite race, the 70.3, because of, the hills and the run on the coast. Yeah, that's definitely my fave. And I think long term, I can see myself living in South Africa, but I think we will always be tripping to spend time in Europe too. I think, they'll be our 2 bases, and we'll just chase the summer.
Chase the summer and chase the sun. Yeah, absolutely. And good wine.
Yeah, of course.
Good wine. Emer Comerford, who has just actually completed a project on women in sport. So a little shout out to Emer there on her project. How important are the easy sessions that you do? And after a race, how long and what kind of recovery would you take? So there's 2 questions there again. How important are the easy sessions? And after a race, how long and what kind of recovery would you take?
Yeah, so I think your easy sessions are just as important as the hard ones, because they're the ones that you're building up that metabolism, that you're actually teaching the heart rate to be down and on good form. So the technique ones, I say, if not more important, then they're definitely equally as important as the hard ones. And again, after a race, I think it's really dependent on the race and also how your body feels and how many races you've done. So for me, I like to actively recover after a race. So the first day I'll probably just do a spin and a swim. And then the second day I'll just do an easy jog and a swim, and then pretty much back into full training. But it's taken a while to get to that point. If I'm on a really hot or a really hilly race, then my DOMs after will be way worse. So I take it a little bit easier. Really dependent.
How does the heat affect you, Emma? So the likes of Hawaii or Lanzarote or somewhere that's really, really hot, does that affect you more than if you were racing in the UK?
Yeah, definitely, for sure. I just feel like it just drains so much more out of me, and especially the humidity. So the heat I actually find easier than the humidity. The humidity I always find I will pull up sore for about 2 to 3 days afterwards, like really, really sore muscles. So it definitely drains me.
And do you have to do particular type of recovery then after that type of a race, as opposed to maybe a flatter, cooler race?
Yeah, definitely. So I will again try and do a little bit of leg and a little bit of arm movement of both, but it'll be a lot shorter. So and just keeping cool. So if you're indoors, having a fan on, but trying to do the ride outdoors, and just being a little bit more wary of sweat rates.
Dermot then asks, do you think duathlon is a good preparation for those new to try? And did you specialise in duathlon before triathlon?
I think duathlon is really good, especially for winter strength. So duathlons hurt and they make you so strong. And especially if you're a good swimmer, do duathlons, because they will make your triathlon that much stronger. And for me, I did triathlon first, but I used duathlon as that progression of getting some results whilst I was still working on my swim.
Jonathan Wabker, and I hope I've pronounced his name. I apologise, Jonathan, if I haven't. What keeps you motivated? Many of us struggle with keeping motivated during these crazy times. Emma just seems to keep on going no matter what. It's almost as if she never has a bad day. So, Emma, what keeps you motivated?
Yeah, talk to Jared. I have plenty of bad days. But I think it's just loving what I do and knowing that always the first 2 steps out the door are the hardest. If you're tired, if you're not feeling great, if I don't know, something has happened, always those first 2 steps or that first little bit of the cycle can be the hardest bit. Whereas when you get into it and afterwards, you always feel better. And I always say no problem can't be solved with a run. And maybe that's a bit naive, but I always feel just so much better when I've moved, when I've done like what I want to do. I just think just loving what you do. I think it's important. If you're not having fun with your training, then just mixing it up, getting some variation in, doing it with people, whatever it is that makes you tick, just make sure you love doing it.
Is running the one sport that you will always go to?
Yeah, definitely.
So for me, who really should be picking up my running over the next couple of weeks, and I'm sure there's many others who have been neglecting their run, maybe for the extra bit of Zwifting or whatever that's going on, what would be your tips to get me back running again, to lace up those runners and just go outside?
I think have something to focus on. So have a point, whether you're thinking about pulling up, so your heel to your bum, but in part of your cycle, or taking your shoulders back, or breathing a little bit deeper, just having a focus point that's going to make your run feel more comfortable, because then you'll ease into it. And you won't think about, I hate doing this. I wish I wasn't out running again. Like, you just start the run, you have a focus point, and it'll make you feel better. And then you just steadily get into your pace, and not starting off too fast. That's the other one. Just starting nice and steady, thinking about that focus point, and just finding your flow and your rhythm. And music. I love music. So getting a good playlist on and just, running with your music.
That question brought us nicely into the next one, from Heather O'Brien, who asks, being especially strong in one discipline, how do you balance your training to reflect this?
I think so. With my running, I always do a reasonable amount of running, because I know that I can, and as long as it's not impacting on the others. So the swim and bike will be my priority, and I'll push the run as far as it's not eating into the others. If I'm seeing my power drop, or if I'm struggling and really tired on a day, then I know that the run will have to be the one that goes. So just prioritizing the other two, and yeah.
So ditching the run for the least favourite disciplines.
Yeah.
Okay, so Rachel Nolan asks, do you think bib shorts are more comfortable than bibless shorts, or why are most women wearing them?
Personally, I much prefer the bib shorts. I just think that they just hold and fit a little bit better. I personally always wear them. But again, everyone's different. I know my mother-in-law to be, I'm sure she won't mind me saying this, but she prefers non-bib. So yeah, I think it's really personal. But my preference would be bib shorts.
So Emma, we did get a question in. I don't have this person's name here in front of me, but it's with regards to sponsorship, and how does an athlete go about getting sponsorship? You've obviously changed from the BNC team for the coming year. So how does that all work?
Yeah, so I think with sponsors, there is a lot of people cutting back, and I was really fortunate enough to be able to work with Specialized. And so for me, I find it hard and awkward. Like, I'm not trained in business management, and I don't like having those conversations. So I have someone that represents me, and I leave the conversations to them. And I kind of also, so I coach at the same time, and just for that way of, if I don't get the sponsors next year, I always know I can support myself and believe in myself. And that's kind of my way of coping with it. It kind of takes the pressure off of, okay, if there is a bad year, that I can still do what I love. So that's kind of my personal way of handling it.
One or two more questions before we finish up, and a huge thanks to our listeners for asking those questions. If I could ask you, who is your sporting hero?
I think I'd have to say Kelly Holmes, and just because the work that she's done after achieving such great things and then carrying on, putting it back into the sport. So focusing on the next generation, and the advice she's given me and the work that I've seen her do in the community is just amazing. So she'd be my hero.
And for those who are tuning in to the very first episode of Try Talking Sport of 2021, who maybe are considering taking the plunge into running or triathlon, what advice would you give them for the next few weeks going forward?
I would say do it and start off steady. So just go at your own pace, start off really small, and always end to begin with knowing that you could have done more, because then it's the consistency that counts. So if you think you can go for a half an hour run at, say, 5-minute K pace, then slow it down a little bit and just get it done. And then the next day you can do something else and then run again the next day. So just making it really progressional. So don't go all guns blazing, just start off steady and better to back up days than do a massive day and then nothing for 3 days. And yeah, that's the way to build up nice and strong.
Thank you so much for joining us on the show. I'm delighted to open the year with you as our guest on the podcast, and wish you and Jared every success for Friday, for the wedding. We'll be dying to see the Instagram photographs and the Instagram stories, and I want to see it all for the next few days. I want to see it all, the behind the scenes, the crack and the banter and all the fun, and best of luck with everything for 2021. I really hope to see you on a finish line somewhere, whether it's in the UK or further afield, but congratulations on everything so far.
Awesome. Thank you so much, and thank you for having me.
Thanks for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Don't forget you can get in touch with any feedback or guest suggestions by emailing me on trytalkingsport@gmail.com. I'd love to connect with you on social media. You can find me on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn and Instagram. Pop by and say hi. Let me know what you think of the show. If you're new to Try Talking Sport, please do check out some of our previous episodes. You will be both inspired and impressed by our guests. In the meantime, until the next time, stay safe, keep smiling, and remember to look for fun and adventure in every day.